All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this important conversation about school safety and emergency management. We have a number of special guests with us today. I will do some of the introductions, but let me first ask our interim superintendent of schools, Dr. Monifa McKnight, to get us started with her comments. Dr. McKnight?
Thank you so much, Mr. Cram, and good afternoon to everyone. I am Monifa McKnight, interim superintendent here in Montgomery County Public Schools. And we will get to introductions, and I look at the screen and I'm grateful that we have such a collective body of community members in so many different ways dedicated to us having a conversation today, which I think is timely and very important for our community and different communities across the nation. And I'll begin by sharing what happened last week at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas. Was absolutely devastating to the point in which words cannot absolutely fully capture the sadness that I feel or that any of us would feel for the loss of the families and the communities that experienced such a tragedy. Now, as that happened, some states away from Maryland, I really do feel moved to speak on this terrible incident 3 times now, in messages to our schools, to our Montgomery County community, and at large, because as a parent and as a school system leader, it is absolutely times like now in which we must come together and address the fear and anxiety that our community rightfully have felt following the incident that we have all witnessed on the news and broadcasted across the country constantly over the past week. I cannot just talk about this. What's most important is that we need to be able to talk about how our schools here in Montgomery County are safe spaces for our students. And I believe that we do have good systems and practices in place. And for that, I'm actually thankful for the partnership and commitment from our police partners who are here today, because they are true partners in helping to ensure that we do have safety as a priority within our schools and within our community. Now, while all the facts are not known yet about what happened in the situation in Uvalde, Texas, there is surely going to likely be an investigation that continues to occur. There rightfully have been questions raised from many of our community members about how things like this could be prevented from happening in our community or any school community across the nation. And I believe that being prepared for emergencies is an important part of our response strategy. We have practiced, we have improved, and regularly stressed the importance of our safety procedures here in Montgomery County Public Schools. We have our lockdown drills, our shelter in place and evacuation drills, and all of these emergency practices have been designed and are practiced so that everyone in our school system will know what to do when a crisis occurs in our school. And we are fortunate that we have had such great expertise in local law enforcement who've been working side by side with us over years to be able to help us reevaluate our processes and make them even better. They're vigilant in their investigative efforts, working to always root out any threats that could emerge and impact our schools or the safety of our schools. They are highly trained and should be an active presence when required in our school system. And I say that because I'm grateful for their partnership and their care for our students, our teachers, and our staff overall. And for this partnership, I want to publicly say thank you to them. Law enforcement is a tough job, we all know, but we also know that they're here for us. And I'd like to be able to outline just for a few moments today, a few things that we do in Montgomery County Public Schools to ensure that safety in our schools is at the forefront of our priority. And then I'm also going to ask our board president, Ms. Brenda Wolf, who is here today, and our Montgomery County Police Chief, Chief Jones, to speak to those issues as well. So there are several key components in our approach to safety that I want to highlight. First, it is absolutely our practice that all exterior doors are locked during the instructional day, and I have asked that this be reinforced with all school leaders. It's extremely important, and for many reasons that we understand why this process is one that is important. We also have school security vestibules, which are designed to ensure that people coming into our schools have to be buzzed in through a locked door On the other side of that locked door, you have staff inside who can look at who's at the door through a security camera, and they meet the staff. The visitors in the schools meet staff members, and then they come into the building and they sign into our visitor management system. And that's been designed to make sure that we understand and know exactly who's coming in our building and having a process of security as they enter into our buildings. And there are a few schools that have not yet had a security vestibule installed. But there is still a locked door that a staff member must open for any visitor who is coming into our buildings. And I just want to emphasize that. We're also strengthening training for our security staff that is going to enhance procedures for external facilities such as sporting facilities and relocatable classrooms. All of our staff training will cover not only response during a crisis, but also awareness measures that avoid threats before they occur. And I think that's important to highlight because we are always thinking about what can we do to make sure we're being proactive and most importantly, preventative. Chief Jones, who's going to speak this, also has reaffirmed to me, and as a principal growing up in the system, I remember that our police policy here in Montgomery County and training is that in a situation involving an active shooter, it is the first responding officer who would immediately move to preserve life. Okay, so our allied law enforcement partners also support this approach. And again, I've called back on that training myself growing up as a principal in this county has been a consistent and important part of our training. I just want to emphasize that to our community. We also very much value the collaboration of everyone in our community to make us aware of threats when they are made, whether they're made verbally or online. And this allows for there to be an investigation in hopes of being able to avert any crisis. And I emphasize this point because this depends on the commitment of the community. That means our students, our families, our parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, everybody who is a part of this community to be alert and vigilant to say if I have information, I believe that this is information that could be impactful to this school community or compromise the safety of a community, it's important to report that. And it also allows for, again, that investigative process to begin so that even if there is not a threat, law enforcement and others are able to engage in the process to be able to determine that early on. And then we also have the reporting of suspicious activity, a line that in which you can always report anything that any information that you may have anonymously. And we call that the Maryland Safe Tip Line. And you're able to utilize that. And the number is 1-833 MD be safe. It's just that simple. And doing the reports or entering supports in this tip line, it does alert the police and school officials at the same time if there's any tip that comes in that could possibly be credible, in which it allows, again, the community to be proactive and look into it and determine, is it a credible threat or not? So I encourage everyone to use that tip line and recognize the responsibility of each of us to make sure that we're contributing our part to making sure that we keep safe spaces in our schools and in our community overall. Schools and all police agencies in Montgomery County have a long established and robust partnership. And I also highlight the recent agreement guiding our community engagement officers is an excellent example of that. And while we work with many community members and stakeholders through the process of what that program is, it says, although we had to come to many conversations and thoughts and perspectives around how we were able to make sure that we were reconciling all of the interests to all of our stakeholders in our community, we were able to come out with a program that really addressed that. And we're going to continue to learn from that and upgrade all of our processes and procedures and practices as we learn. The police department and MCPS staff regularly undergo the training for how we implement all of these programs. And I must say that regular training on emergency procedures, including those related to an active shooter incident, is one that we engage in on a regular basis. So I want to thank those of you who have offered feedback also on our recent community messages. As I send those messages out, hoping to communicate with you as a school system superintendent, as a parent, however the message resonates with you, when you respond back and tell me what thoughts you have, it's helpful for me to hear back from you about what your concerns are. And I'm also glad to hear from you when you think we get it right. And so being proactive in that communication, especially after incidents based on this past week, what's happened in Uvalde, Texas, we want to engage you in the discussion to at least bring comfort to you and letting you know what we're doing in Montgomery County. I also understand that our community is concerned about a perceived rise in violence. And, they're concerned out there about the prevalence of weapons being available, especially guns. And there's concern that we do not mean what we say when we confirm our commitment to safety. And I will be the first to tell you, as the superintendent in Montgomery County Public Schools, this is absolutely my priority. It's all of our priority. We're here, the staff, community members, because our children, they're our prized possessions. I mean, this is why we're here. And as long as we're making a commitment to making sure that they can have the opportunity to look towards a bright future, and when that comes into making sure that we create safe spaces for them, making sure that they are getting the education that they need and deserve in our schools, that has to be at the forefront of what we do. So I share that with you because I want you to know that safety is absolutely one of my priorities, as any others that bring us to the point of saying, what is it that we need to do to ensure that our students have a long life ahead of them and one that is fruitful. So students and staff must be safe and feel safe to perform at their very best every single day. And we're doing everything in our power to make sure that they feel safe, and the things that and protocols that we put in place to help them feel safe is what allows them to be their best selves as they come forward every day to teach and support our students in our schools. And I'm referring that to our staff members. And I want to thank them for that, because even coming back into school this week, I recognize and know that it was not an easy week for everyone to come back in, and it wasn't just business as usual. And so I want to thank our staff members for coming in and knowing the importance of us working together and getting the information that we need to create that safe space for them and for our students, which then allows our families to feel more comforted. I've referred to this often, but the importance of us rebuilding trust with our families and staff as MCPS is one of also my highest priorities. And a part of rebuilding that trust is for you to know that my commitment to safety is present and always is. And I am working every day to make sure that our schools are safe spaces to learn and to work. And so our partners are here today, and I know they feel as I do. While these are my words, we've had many conversations and made many commitments on planning for how we work in partnership on behalf of our students and community that allow me to say that these are my words, but I know they share the same sentiments. And so as a community, we must continue to maintain this shared commitment to keep each other safe. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to the President of the Board of Education, Ms. Wolf, for a few comments. And then we're going to hear from Chief Jones, our County Executive, Mr. Elrich, and our County Council President, President Albornoz. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McKnight. Good afternoon. I'm Brenda Wolf. I'm the President of the Board of Education. You know, it's been a tough week for us. I, my board colleagues, and our entire nation feel a deep sense of grief about the senseless killing of school children last week in Texas. 19 children and 2 teachers died in a place that should have been safe, filled with learning and laughter. Many of you know that I have a grandson in elementary school and a daughter that teaches in this system. So this was very personal and scary. And I'm sure that they're tired of being hugged, but I felt like I just had to hold them quite a while after this. Our schools must be places of learning, of growth, of exploration, and of joy. Because of what has happened at Robb Elementary and similar school shootings, many now have to worry about safety in school. This is unacceptable. We must collectively do what we can do to change the culture of violence that has so devastatingly impacted our school communities. We all have a role in creating this change. As a community, we must teach our children how to manage conflict and solve problems, and we must take steps to convince society that school violence is a national crisis. We must also address the mental health issues that our children carry with them. We will continue partnering with law enforcement and governmental agencies to help keep our schools safe. As Dr. McKnight said, we do have emergency procedures in place, and I've seen the students and staff practice these procedures. I have great hope that because of our ongoing practice and training, we are doing what needs to be done to keep our schools safe. It is my deep belief that our school leaders are committed to safety first as an approach, and I want our community to be aware of that. As I said, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, and I am an advocate for children. I'm asking our community to join us in this commitment. Make us and the police aware of any threats you see online or hear about. Report them. They will be investigated. We all must be vigilant. So I look forward to hearing from Chief Jones about this work. And I know that if we all work together, we can make a difference. Speaking for my fellow Board of Education members, we are committed to doing all that we can do to heighten safety in our schools. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Chief Jones.
Thank you, and good afternoon, and thank you to our Board of Education President, Mrs. Wolf, as well as Dr. McKnight. And I really do appreciate our partnership in order to maintain a safe school environment, which is a very, very important mission of our police departments, all of our law enforcement agencies throughout Montgomery County for public safety. I also want to thank the county executive, Mark Elridge, as well as Council President Albornoz for joining us today to highlight the importance of this very important topic. And as important, I want to thank my fellow law enforcement chiefs and Sheriff Popkin for joining us today in a really a sign of solidarity that is vitally important in the public safety realm, as we are partners in so many aspects of public safety throughout the county, and the school system being a major part of that. First and foremost, I want to state that I want to make sure that as many are dissecting what happened last week in Texas through that terrible tragedy, I don't want to necessarily comment on the actions of those, because there's much more to be found. But what I would like to stress is to talk about what we have been doing in Montgomery County for a long period of time, and what we continue to do, what we find as important in response to training. And one of the most important aspects of being prepared is that you have to train. And for over 20 plus years, Montgomery County Police and the law enforcement partners that are represented here today have been significantly involved in training to any active shooter incident, particularly at our schools. And we've been doing that since Columbine happened so many years ago. But we have not only embraced the training, but we have enhanced that training with more tools and more things available to our officers. As Dr. McKnight noted, what is the philosophy of our actions when we are responding to an active shooter in case? It is clear that all officers know, as we have trained them from the days that when they were in the police training academy, through their in-service training, that they are to go in and to basically be able to destabilize that threat, to eliminate the threat that's causing harm in any school environment in an active shooter situation or any active shooter. We've also trained extensively, no matter what agency you're from, that we are put together as teams for an immediate action team plan that goes in, and we have those officers going in with additional tools such as ballistic shields, breaching tools, and other equipment that they have, that they're able to address any threat at any time, whether it's a locked room or not. We worked in partnership with Montgomery County Public Schools in their lockdown procedures, as Dr. McKnight noted, as also knowing that they have locked doors at their facilities. But we have created a plan that allows our officers to make entry into those incidents no matter what, based upon access to the school, which MCPS has partnered with us over the last few years in order to allow our officers to make entry into those schools, no matter what those circumstances, whether the doors are locked or not. And that's an important aspect, because I really do applaud Montgomery County Public Schools for the work that they've done in order to ensure safety on their campuses. And that's a very important piece here to note that, and it doesn't stop. We don't stop assessing, we don't stop training, and we don't stop planning on a worst case scenario. The best strategy for prevention, of course, is what Dr. McKnight and Mrs. Wolf has stated, is to talk to is our community. The call to action is to make sure that you are notifying our officers or the authorities in the school system or the police department about potential threats and how we address them. I want to just briefly state how we deal with these. We often receive threats sometimes to our school systems. My detectives, in partnership with MCPS School Security, works hand in hand along with MCPS other staff members and principals and administrators in order to address these very threats, to ensure the safe environment for students returning to schools. This is vitally important. Our detectives do a lot of legwork. We do a lot of other work with talking to the individuals that may be involved in making these threats, so that we assess them and we make a decision jointly with MCPS in order to make a decision about whether or not what's the best process in order to handle these types of threats that have been made and the individuals who made them. So again, I just want to clearly stress that it is vitally important that everyone understand the training that we have we have collectively put together. We continuously do. We will continue to do more training this summer into the early before the school year starts next year, as well as we continue to grow our CEO program from the standpoint of maybe new members joining the team. But again, when new staff joins MCPS, we all still must collectively understand what is our safety plans and how to effectively carry them out. So thank you very much. And I believe at this point in time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Eldridge, our county executive.
Thank you, Chief Jones. I want to thank Dr. McKnight and President Wolf for organizing this important conversation. Nobody's going to find any distance between any of us and how we respond to this. I want to be clear about that. No one's going to tolerate these kind of actions. No one's going to be indifferent to how we respond. And we're going to make sure that we have the tools and the people in place in order to make sure that our schools are as safe as we can possibly make them. Gun violence is a tragedy, no matter where it happens, when it happens, or who it happens to. And violence or abuse involving children in any form or fashion should be unimaginable, but it's certainly unacceptable. And this past week, our nation and county has had to come to grips with yet another mass shooting of elementary school kids. Students, parents, teachers, and support staff are scared, they're outraged, and they worry about what's going on and what's going to happen to their school. And, I can only think back on my own experience as a teacher during the sniper, and understanding the real fear and real concern that people had about people's safety at a time when no one knew what to expect and who to expect it from. We're very much in that situation now, and I will say that incidents like the one in Buffalo do not help. They contribute to a broader sense of instability and insecurity, because it's obvious there are a lot of extremely unstable individuals out there who are willing to do incredibly awful things. And no one can rest easy knowing that that's the case. Certainly, I understand why people are feeling more concerned now than ever about their own safety. Right now, there are several national conversations going on in the wake of this tragedy. And it's clear to me there are two distinct types of responses that are needed right now. There's an immediate response and a long-term response. And I'm glad Chief Jones is able to join us and update us on the response and partnership and cooperation with MCPS. And for what we know, there are some serious problems with how the police responded in Uvalde. And it's good to know that that's not the way we work. it's important for everybody in this community to know that we have different expectations and will not respond the way it happened in Uvalde. But our Montgomery County Police have excellent emergency response training for these types of situations, and they have strong partnerships with our schools. And if you look at incidents, not the things that happened in schools, but things that happened in the community where officers had to put their lives in jeopardy to save other people, we've seen officers do that. We see them do that every year. So we know we have people who understand, what they need to do and the willingness to do it. And I have a lot of confidence in our department here. According to the Maryland Center for School Safety, all 209 MCPS schools have adequate law enforcement coverage. We're only one of 4 counties in the state to have all of our schools adequately covered. We have 252 officers trained to deal with school safety. That's the most in the state. And for comparison, Baltimore County only has 76 officers trained, 111,000 students, so 1 officer for 1,462 students. Anne Arundel has 49 trained officers for 85,000 students. That's 1 officer for almost every 1,900 students. And Howard County has 22 officers for a student population of 57,000, which is about 1 officer to every 2,600 students. Montgomery County has 1 officer for every 637 students. We've made a commitment. We have the people in the field. We understand what it is we need to do, and we've been doing this not just in response to this incident. This has been a matter of practice for a while. I know some parents are worried about copycat incidents happening here, and the schools and police are doing everything in their power to check the immediate security and safety of our students and the buildings and ensure that the best procedures and practices are being followed. We can't forget the need for longer term solutions. Obviously, gun control is important. Obviously, we need common sense solutions, and it's maddening that shooting after mass shooting, nothing ever gets passed. The state legislature was able to ban ghost guns. I cannot tell you how alarming it is that ghost guns are readily available out there. You can buy them online. It is not all that complicated. It is scary because you can get videos that tell you how to put them together. And if you wanted to buy the same gun assembled, you would need a permit and you'd have to go to a licensed gun shop. To buy guns unassembled as kits, you don't need any of that. You don't need to demonstrate anything. There's no background check. It is a serious problem and a major loophole, and I'm glad the state acted to close it. But this is really something the federal government has to put an end to. With Uvalde, the question is, are we ever going to be able to change Republicans and even some Democrats like Joe Manchin's mind? When Parkland and Sandy Hook didn't do that. There was a time when everybody got together in the face of mass shootings and decided we were going to ban assault rifles, unfortunately, at an expiration date. We took bipartisan efforts to make changes, and the fact that we're in a place where gun control and public safety is a political position rather than a position as an responsible elected official to take care of the people you represent, it's really alarming. People are trying to blame it on movies and video games and social media. But when we lose a student to violence and guns, at the end of the day, we lost that battle no matter where it started. We lose it at the end. And we have to do a better job. We have to learn how to intervene before it's too late. And when police get involved, it's pretty much already too late. I was reminded when I saw an interview with the father of the shooter in Uvalde, who talked about how he couldn't manage his son and how disturbed he was by what he was seeing. And I was thinking there was no place for him to go, nobody to bring his son to, nobody to try to get help from. And we need, in our county, to step up more. We've been working to prioritize the mental well-being of our students. We've invested and budgeted more for counselors, psychologists, and social workers. We have 14 school-based health centers with mental health services, 29 linkages to learning programs to assist students and their families, 6 street outreach network anti-gang programs in schools, and the FY23 will expand wellness centers to 10 more high schools, focusing exclusively on mental health services at first. And an additional full-service school-based health center will open at Kennedy High School. But we have to do more. As I mentioned before, and I talked about this in my media briefing, we have to make sure that people can get access when and where they need it. These facilities, the county used to have community clinics. They had a system of community clinics in the 60s and 70s. They got dismantled. I'm asking people to look at what it would take to resurrect the community clinics and provide support that's accessible in the community, not just to children in school, but to some of the children out of school, young adults, and even older adults. When we look at even incidents in our schools, we see much of what's involved there is with people who are actually older than school age, not just school age children. And if we're going to deal with this, we've got to deal with it holistically. And we certainly have a community that's in crisis, and we need to do a better job and more to respond to it. So we'll be looking to roll out some thoughts on how to broaden mental health service availabilities in the county as a whole. I look forward to continuing to work with MCPS and MCPD and the Board of Education and the County Council to ensure that all of our school buildings are safe spaces for our students to learn and grow, free from fear. And when they need help, we have the help available to them. So I want to thank you again for putting this together. And I believe I turn this over to Bob and Rose.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. And I do want to thank Dr. McKnight, President Wolf, Chief Jones, for gathering today to show a united front in working at all levels of local government to do all that we can to safely protect our children, youth, families, the faculty, staff, and administration of these critically important places in our community. And I agree with everything that has been said so far. It is overwhelmingly depressing that with every single one of these tragic and maddening incidences, they come a little closer to home. And we are, as has been indicated, doing all that we can to ensure that our policies, our funding, our training is in line and is clearly communicating with each other. But there is always more that we can do. And from the council's perspective, I speak on behalf of all of my colleagues in expressing just our unimaginable condolences to the families in Uvalde and of all of the other victims of gun violence across this country, which have become so prevalent. And this has fallen into a pattern that is just absolutely overwhelming. And I agree with what has been said with regards to the need for us to focus on this at the national level, but at the local level, we do want to assure the community we are doing as much as we can. I'll highlight several examples. In this operating budget that we just recently passed last week from the council, in partnership with our school system, in partnership with the county executive's office and all of our sister county agencies, we significantly expanded mental health services for our youth through the expansion of wellness centers into every high school in Montgomery County, more than just the 5 that they are located in right now. We also expanded the infrastructure of our crisis hotline, and that number is worth repeating. That number is area code 240-777-4000. And anyone that is experiencing a mental health crisis or suspects that one of their loved ones is experiencing a mental health crisis should call that line. It is available 24/7. It can accept text messages. Referrals can then be made. Support can be provided for people who are in crisis. And there is a partnership and network in place with our Department of Health and Human Services and our community-based organizations and providers to work systemically in addressing the mental health needs of our residents. We have also placed funding to, as best we can, transition to the new national 988 call-in number for mental health crises, which will transition on July 16th. And our nonprofit providers who have the contracts to be able to carry out this critically important service, we increase the funding for those organizations as well to ensure that they have the support that they need. And we have also significantly reinvested and expanded services during out of school time for Excel Beyond the Bell, as well as sports-based programs, arts-based programs, and activities where children and youth have an additional opportunity to interact with a caring adult who has been trained in how to support them and can also make referrals if an incident occurs or if a youth brings a situation to those caring adults' attention. We are working from a policy level as best we can to curb the gun control, the gun violence that we're seeing in our community. And prior to the General Assembly passing their legislation, which went into effect today, the council last year passed a zoning text amendment to prevent the sale of ghost guns within a mile of every school in Montgomery County. That has now been superseded by this state bill, which is a good thing. But as the county executive noted, we need this to pass at the national level because we have no control over what happens in neighboring states, and we have very little control over what happens in e-commerce. And as the county executive noted, these weapons are all too easy to have access to. And we also need to close loopholes. I often hear advertisements for gun shows in neighboring jurisdictions where it is more easily available to be able to purchase weapons. And we know that during the pandemic, there was a 40% increase in the sale of legal guns here in Montgomery County, which adds more guns into our community. And as Chief Jones recently acknowledged in testimony before the council, most of the weapons that are utilized in crimes or during incidences of violence are weapons that have been stolen. And so we have to make sure that the weapons that we are purchased legally, which should be curbed, at a minimum are locked up in a way that is safe. But we on the council are exploring actively to see what more we can do in the way of legislation at the local level to aggressively pursue policies that take as many of these guns out from the streets as possible, or prevents as many of people as possible from purchasing them, particularly those that shouldn't be purchasing them in the first place. And we are going to be focusing as well on some of those underlying conditions that are leading to some of the crises that families are experiencing with regards to economic development, housing, and a number of other steps to make sure that we stabilize and provide as much support for families as possible. This has to be tackled through multiple fronts, and the safety and security of our children, youth, and families is absolutely our highest possible priority. So we look forward to continuing the partnership with not just the partners that are on this call, but by everybody out in the community. And we will continue to aggressively pursue policies that keep our children and youth safe during these unsettling times, and we'll push hard at the federal level. And we have a congressional delegation that has been at the forefront, and leaders nationally, but they need help. And we have to, as Washingtonians, take advantage of where we live and who is in our backyard in ensuring that our voices are heard and that we move forward national legislation to help complement what we're doing at the local level. So with that, I'll yield back to you, Dr. McKnight, and then happy to answer any questions that the media may have directed specifically to me and the council. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Council President, and everybody for your comments. We do have members of the media here, and we will now turn to your questions. If you don't mind raising that Zoom hand, and we'll take you in order as much as I can follow that. Does anybody have a question for any of our guests today? Kate Ryan?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. There was mention of the number of vestibules that are had been changed over the years. I know this was an effort that was underway long before the events of last week. There was a mention of some not done. How many? I won't ask where they are, but how many? And then in a recent school board meeting, students, one after the other, asked about expanding something called Our Minds Matter and using what they described as a newly budgeted telehealth platform for that. Can you tell us about that, and will that be something the schools will pursue?
Yes.
Yeah, Dr. McKnight, that's two questions, Kate. So let's start with number one, Dr. McKnight. I think you want to answer that first one.
Sure. So as of right now, we have two schools, one that's actually up for this summer in terms of making sure that that vestibule area has been built on. So after the summer, there is one. But as I noted earlier, we do not see that as a barrier to the progress of making sure that we monitor who's having access to the building, because even in after the summer, then the one school that won't have a vestibule built on, there still is the entrance process in which it is a locked door in which someone has to gain access to the school, and the office has to permit that.
Okay. And then on the mental health issue?
So the mental,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
yes, okay. So yes, our students came forward to a board meeting last week and really emphasized the importance of us expanding that program. And we are working with them and looking to make sure that every school that has an interest in utilizing that program, making sure that we're working, that advisors and others who can be available to help that program be in places there. But Kate, you bring up a good question, because there's always this a balance of how we are sharing or having the conversation between safety and addressing the mental health issues. And it's always that you're doing both simultaneously and all the time, because they both are needs that always exist and we have to address them. I did want to mention this. Our Minds Matter is one of those programs that we have, again, as one of many extracurricular programs that we have available to our students. And we are, again, looking at opportunities to expand it where we can staff it. But I also want to mention, last night we had a very powerful session. I saw that we have our county executive here, and he's aware because we work closely with the Department of Health and Human Services to do this. But last night at Seneca Valley, we held our first of many forums entitled Your Story Matters. And it's a mental health forum that we held at Seneca Valley last night. Over 150 families attended. It was our parents, caregivers, community members, and they all came out and they wanted to hear about what are the resources that we have available as a school system, as Department of Health and Human Services, to make sure that we know what the needs are and that they're easily accessible to our community. And we're proud to participate in partnerships like that with the Department of Health and Human Services, because it should be that we're always looking at how we are able to combine those efforts to make sure that every child, every family get what they need, so that the stressors of life do not impact them in a way in which they go to options that really are hopeless, that end up in these situations. And so we had therapists on site, we had social workers, counselors, therapeutic staff, everyone available, and the sessions were packed. And I emphasize the sessions being packed because it just shows that there is a need, and our community members are coming out and showing up saying, you know, we want to be proactive in assessing the resources that are available to our students and then to our families.
So just to be clear, that you're just looking at Our Minds Matter right now, or will you, because it sounds like the students were saying this is something you could do easily, quickly, and they feel it works in their schools. They don't know why it's not available in all schools.
So right now, Kate, to be specific, we have Our Minds Matter existing in 17 of our high schools and 2 of our middle schools. So we do have it implemented in a total of 19 schools within our system. Our students were advocating for expanding that program into more schools. And so we have committed to being able to look at which schools are interested and want to host that program on behalf of our students who may find that program advantageous for them, and expanding it as just another resource.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kate. We have next Suzanne Pollock, then Mr. Shear, then Ms. Ramirez, and then Ms. Cho. Suzanne?
Thanks. I would imagine if you had held a similar press conference in Uvalde, Texas, like a week or 2 ago, they would have said that they were prepared and trained. How do you convince parents that you really are ready, not that you can be totally, but you really are ready to handle a situation?
Thank you. I'll begin by saying this is where communication and proactive communication becomes really important in our community. And earlier in my comments, I emphasized the importance of reestablishing trust. And yes, we do have emergency preparedness drills as an example of something that I highlighted earlier. But here's what's most important about what we do. As we have these incidents that occur, incidents that may occur in our own community, incidents that occur in other places nationally, what we have the commitment to doing in collaboration with our internal safety and security office in partnership with the police department is using those incidents and learning from them to upgrade our practices, processes, and procedures to make them even better. And to me, that's how we strengthen the processes that we do have in place, and then communicate that out so that we're being proactive. And while no, that doesn't solve the issue of an incident occurring that we hope would not occur, what we do hope to accomplish in that is communicating that we're always thinking, preparing, and working to be proactive and learning from incidents to strengthen our processes. Chief Jones, if there's anything you want to add to that, I welcome you to share as well.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. McKnight. And I would just reiterate the fact that, the extensive training in which we do, and again, you can have a lot of people rest on their laurels and think that they're trained and they're ready. But you always have to prepare for the next incident, and you have to adapt your training, and you have to look at previous events that and learn from those lessons in those particular incidents from the briefings that not only that we may have internally for incidents that may occur, it may not rise to the actions of an active shooter, but it's still a school safety issue that we learn from, very similar to incidents such as Magruder High School. So it's always a learning, and I think the community, again, in order to be able to try to get them to understand this, I think, again, trying to be really proactive and in the sense of sharing information in which, we are partnering with MCPS and looking at a lot of the fabulous, I think, security programs that they have in place to ensure school safety in conjunction with our CEOs, says that we are still working and not stopping to learn about previous incidents as well as what is before us in everyday challenges.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Shear, you're next.
Hi. This question is, I guess, mainly for Chief Jones, but anybody else can chime in. Just was wondering, with the beginning of the ghost gun ban taking effect today, what steps are being taken to enforce that in the county, and if sort of the school system has a role in that?
Well, the ghost gun ban that's in effect in the state of Maryland is going to enhance our ability to really try to address these crimes. Now it is against the law to possess these guns and to actually sell them. Again, we will, as we have been doing, actively investigate illegal gun crimes here in Montgomery County. We've been very active in recovery of guns, illegal guns, even going to the steps of doing further investigations and discovering that individuals have gun making kits and things of that nature. So, again, we share intelligence and information with MCPS, and we have students that might be that we may have information on that may be in possession of these illegal weapons. So information sharing is important. And again, through our partnerships, in order to be able to make sure that we're creating that safe environment. But Montgomery County Police will continue to do, conduct these investigations along with our other law enforcement partners to address these gun crimes, as we know have been occurring in our community way too often.
All right, let's now go to Stephanie Ramirez, Channel 5.
Thank you. When Montgomery County Public Schools posted this meeting to social media, there were some parents and members of the community who commented with some questions of their own. Particularly, there's a question on trailers that are outside of the school vestibule. Can you please talk about how those are protected with students moving in and out of those locations?
Absolutely. And I'm going to turn it over to our safety and security officer, Ed Clark, in just a moment. But I do want to emphasize the importance of our families coming on and making those comments, because we do read them. And based on that, we know what information to share with them to make them feel comfortable. I'll ask Mr. Clark to speak to this specifically, but we know that, over the years, many parents have presented concerns about their children being out in portables. So what we have done is we've incorporated that into our training, specifically around safety and security, so that we are utilizing our portables and looking at the circumstances of in these situations that we have to address in terms of safety and security protocol, how would it look different or the same in relation to a portable? And so, Mr. Clark, I'll ask you to speak to that more specifically.
Thank you, Dr. McKnight. Yes, and when we consider those portable learning environments to be an extension of the school campus, that's part of the school emergency crisis plan. It's part of our robust emergency drill preparedness and practice of our drills. We've also worked with our school administrators to make sure we have communication devices in those locations, so the event of a critical emergency, we can have immediate communication, certainly to 911, but more importantly to the school administration there. So again, that's part of our overall drill component. As the Chief said, Chief Jones and Dr. McKnight, we're always looking for opportunities to improve safety and security of our school buildings as well as our portables. So that's an integral part of our safety and security posture for every school in Montgomery County Public Schools.
Is there any kind of process then to stop an adult or a stranger from entering or have them sign in from entering if they are to access a portable?
Those doors, as Dr. McKnight had indicated, as well as all the other exterior doors, are to be secured and in place, make sure. In our secondary schools, we have school security staff that make periodic rounds of the campuses. Certainly at the elementary school level, we have a great building service team that's in and about those campuses. So again, the same thing, if we see something, we say something, but more importantly, we do something to bring it to the attention of the school administrator or to public safety as needed.
Thank you, Stephanie. Now let's go to Amy.
I'm sorry, can I just add at least one more question in there?
One more, and then we need to go to somebody else, please. Go ahead.
The chief, had spoke on Magruder High School and learning what happened after the shooting there. There were some concerns about an action report that the superintendent said would come out. Has that come out yet? Can you tell us what has been learned? And then in the wake of the Texas shooting, did Montgomery County Public Schools move to immediately enhance security in the wake of what we saw there?
Thank you. And I'm going to ask Mr. Clark to talk to the report specifically, because there were a number of things that came from that report. But the state of Maryland requires, after we have incidents like that, that we do submit a report to the state. And so we have followed that process and have included all of our learning and upgrades into what the implications are for us moving forward as a result of that. Mr. Clark, can I ask you to speak to specifically highlighting some things in that report?
Yes, certainly, Dr. McKnight. We have been in compliance with the Maryland Center for School Safety. We've held a critical after-action review with our public safety partners as a result of the Magruder High School tragedy there. Certainly, we've made some observations to the Maryland Center for School Safety. They have the obligation to report to the governor and the legislature any upgrades that would benefit the entire state of Maryland in school safety security. So there were some things that we learned there. We know overall there was an outstanding response from our law enforcement community there. There are some things that we can do in the future to make sure the clarity of how the calls go out. So I think we're working on some training opportunities with our police partners on how calls could be dispatched or called into the 911 center as well. And then how we work together in what we call a unified command opportunity. Chief Jones is on the campus as well as senior leadership of MCPS. We all get together and collaborate to make sure that we're prioritizing life safety measures there. So those are some of the initial things that came out. We're still reviewing some things within the school district. So we have made those reports up to the Maryland Center for School Safety.
Thank you, Ed. Stephanie, all set?
The other part of the question was whether there were any immediate changes to enhance security in the wake of what happened in Texas. But also, is that report going to be made available to the public?
Ed, can you answer that last one?
Well, certainly there are some legal requirements that sort of, I don't want to say embargoes those reports, but I do believe that once the center presents their report to the governor of their observations, those will be public facing documents for the community to look at.
All right, thank you. Now let's go to Amy Cho, Channel 4.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. If I could just briefly go back on the communication devices you referenced being put into the portables. What exactly does that look like? Is that a button? Is that a phone? And how do you account for, if someone's hiding on one side of the classroom, they can't necessarily, go across the other side to access that communication device. And then also if I could ask about safety procedures and drills for students who might be outdoors when a threat happens, if the student is on the playground or on a football field in gym class or something, where would they go in case of a threat?
Certainly, we certainly have the ability to either use two-way radios within the portable learning environment there. Also, there's the opportunity for cell phones, also telephone trees or email trees, things of that nature to kind of alert the administration or school security of any concerns within and around those portable devices there. Certainly, we practice those drills if there's a threat outside in the community, that we will bring our students inside the community. There's also an opportunity, depending on where the danger may be, that students and staff can avoid by fleeing those areas to safe ground away from the school campus, and then reporting their location to school officials or law enforcement there. So that's all part of the overall training that we have within our school system here.
All right, thank you. A number of our guests do have other commitments at 3 o'clock, but we do have 2 minutes left. It looks like, Kate Ryan, you want to ask one more question before we close out?
I do. Thank you so much. I think you've touched on this, but I would ask, it's been about 20 years since I've been out of the classroom myself and did these drills with high school students. Since then, we've gone to I think it's the run, hide, fight scenario. Mr. Clark, can you talk about what's changed? Are our kids safer in that the way we carry out these drills? What are your recommendations?
Ms. Ryan, thank you. As Chief Jones says, we've worked with Captain Brian Dillman over the last several years at the Montgomery County Police Department. Captain Dillman is a national expert in school safety, security, and tactical operations. So we embrace the concept similar to run, hide, fight. Another option is avoid, deny, defend. So that's how our staff and students are trained in an age-appropriate way. So we present an array of options. There may be a time and place where the principal needs to implement a building-wide lockdown, and that was done at Magruder High School. So it's evaluating the threat streams in those moments and to putting the schools in the proper school safety response mode. We can increase safety or we can stand down. Certainly, we're very concerned about these drills, especially that may have the triggering effect. Students and staff who have experienced traumas in their life, we want to do that in a way that does not over-traumatize our students. So again, working with our students, working with our principals, security staff, and our parent community, we're always open to saying, is there better ways to improve how we conduct these emergency safety drills within our school district?
Thank you very much.
We may lose some of our guests now, but I know that Solange does have a question for Mr. Albornoz. Do you mind? Go ahead, Solange.
Thank you so much. President Albornoz, I just wanted to know if you can briefly address the Spanish community. We know that there's a lot of, parents that only speak Spanish, and we want to inform them of this initiative. If you could just sum up a couple of the important points for us, I'd really appreciate it.
No, sí, gracias por esa pregunta. Estamos aquí unidos como una comunidad de líderes para confirmar que estamos haciendo todo lo posible para dar apoyo a los jóvenes que son estudiantes de nuestro sistema escolar y a los profesores que están enseñando dentro de las clases. Y hablamos hoy día sobre, tenemos más de 250 oficiales de policía que están entrenados en cómo intervenir cuando hay asuntos de emergencia dentro de nuestros colegios. Y también nosotros tenemos, es importante anotar que lo que pasó en Uvalde no pasaría aquí en nuestro condado, en el sentido de que inmediatamente si hay un problema, nuestra policía va a entrar al colegio para poder asegurar que están haciendo todo lo posible para apoyar a esos jóvenes y asistir y hacer todo lo posible para que si hay una persona con una pistola, con una arma dentro del colegio, que van directo a esa persona para poder parar la situación. No esperar como pasó en Uvalde. Eso también es importante. Y también es importante notar que nosotros tenemos información para gente que están en crisis de salud mental. Pueden llamar al número 240-777-4000, 240-777-4000, y hay gente que habla en diferentes idiomas, incluyendo español, que pueden ayudar a gente que están en crisis, pero también para confirmar que tenemos que trabajar juntos en una alianza con los oficiales al nivel federal, porque aunque nosotros estamos tratando de hacer todo lo posible a nivel local, necesitamos ayuda al nivel federal para asegurar que menos gente tiene capacidad de conseguir estas armas que sabemos son sumamente peligrosos.
Gracias.
All right, well, thank you very much. I very much appreciate all of you that came and shared your thoughts today and joined this conversation. We're going to close it out there.